Richard and Linda Eyre. For nearly 20 years, Richard and Linda Eyre have been among the most prominent and popular speakers in the world on topics of parenting, life balance, and family strengthening. The Eyres have been frequent guests on national network shows, including Oprah, The Today Show, Primetime Live, 60 Minutes, Good Morning America, and once did regular segments on the CBS Early Show. Richard is a Harvard MBA, president of his own management consulting company, and ranked a senior tennis player. He was a mission president in London, a former director of the White House Conference of Parents and Children, as well as a candidate for governor. Linda is a teacher, musician, and co-founder of internationaljoyschools.com, an in-home do-it-yourself co-op and program for teaching preschoolers the joys of life, which I participated in when I was little, so thank you. Both Richard and Linda have served on numerous arts, university, and nonprofit boards and do a newspaper column for the Deseret News, as well as a weekly radio show podcast at BYU Radio. They have 9 children. One of them is here with us tonight. And their children are also doing their parts to strengthen the importance of family in the world. And they have 29 plus 2 more grandkids on the way. And we are so thrilled.
2 in escrow.
2 in escrow, that's what we're saying. All right, we are so thrilled you are here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Troy. You did Joy School when you were a little kid?
Yeah, I did.
Can you sing, "Oh Boy, I've Got Joy"?
Oh.
No, never mind.
I met several as I was coming in. How many of you were in Joy School when you were little kids?
Oh my goodness, look at that. That's the
cool.
very reason you got into the MBA program.
You look so joyful. That's awesome. It's so great to be with you tonight. I've already met a 10-day-old baby, Amelia, up there in the back.
Where's Amelia?
And she's
There, she is sleeping.
She's
Oh,
gorgeous.
bless her heart.
And a lot of you do have babies. And how many of you now have at least one child? How many of you
my
have?
goodness.
I think that's everybody.
Hold it, keep your hands up. Is there any other MBA school in the world like this one? Not a chance.
No, how about 2?
Oh my
Look at that.
goodness.
Almost everybody. Though there's some just to come on. Okay, and 3?
There is a prize for the one that keeps their hand up longest. And I'm going to bet it's Linda. I bet it's someone named Linda. What do you think? Let's just, no, I don't mean you. I mean another Linda.
Oh.
We'll see. We'll see if I'm right.
4? How many have 4? Look at that. The numbers.
Sorry, guys.
Are going
This
down.
is really not a contest. I was only kidding.
Okay. 5? Anybody? Oh. There's one there and one there. 5? That's fantastic. Wow.
Anyone with 5 and 1 in escrow? Ah, Linda. There's Linda. Let's hear it for Linda. How many of you have no children? Keep your hands up. Look around at these. These are the only people who have never made a parenting mistake. There they are. They're the experts. They're the real experts.
Thank you for coming, because now's the time, you know, well, you got a clean shape.
Linda, are you gonna tell that gender bias story?
Well, first I'm going to introduce Noah and Christy to you. Noah and these guys are here rightly because they both graduated. They met at BYU Hawaii, then they moved on to BYU. Both graduated together, went to New York City, where they had, how many did you have before you came back? 4? 3. And when the 4th one was born, in California. Okay, so they had 3 in a 450 square foot apartment in New York City. Crazy, doing a kind of a startup business of his own, and Christy handling all those kids and doing Joy School. And then, actually, then they went to California and had another baby, and then on their 4th baby, Noah went back to USC, still working full time. And for 2 years, graduated in the MBA program there, and while he was there, they had a baby who had to be operated on at birth with serious heart issues. And catheters, all kinds of, rushed it away at birth. And then...
she's now just a little pistol. She's just the most lively, she just jumps all over you when you walk in
that was
her door.
because at 2.5, she had open heart surgery. and they really fixed her heart. And so now they have another baby. So they have 6. They are the winners.
Sorry, Linda, they beat you out because their escrow has become cashed in.
And so we're so proud of them. They have just done a wonderful job. And now Noah has quit his job and jumped into the ocean and starting his own business. So we were there today listening to a presentation of his new team, and he's so excited to move back to Provo because this is where his team is. So you'll get to know Noah and Christy more as you go.
I shouldn't reveal this, but Noah told me confidentially that he's learned more in running a startup company for 2 months than he learned in his whole 2 years at MBA school.
So we love being with you tonight. This is so fun. There's nothing like a group like this, right? That are just starting your life with your children, or just not starting without children. But it is such an exciting time. And before Richard, he's going to kind of run this panel here tonight. But before he starts, I have to just tell you that a young mother came up to me.
This is the gender bias story. I knew it.
Honey, don't ruin the joke. Actually, this mom came up to me after a conference and she said, "You just have to hear what my 9-year-old said today." And I said, "Okay, let me have it." She said, "Mom, how hard is it to be a mom?" And she said, it just kind of took my breath away. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to explain how hard it was to be a mom. Before I even got a chance to say anything, she said, "Mom, sometimes is it just so hard that you wish you were a dad?" Now, no offense to you dads. We're going to talk about this a little bit tonight. Because we know dads are better than they've ever been in the history of time. But you know where the buck stops? It is really great. A shout out to you, moms. You're just absolutely amazing. We're glad you survived.
Before we launch in, hand the mic over to Noah and Christy and just see if they want to say anything in introduction. They have no idea what we're going to talk about, so, you know, it'll be interesting to see what they might say.
I would say the buck stops with my mom. And no, I would say that I get asked all the time about my parents because they're pretty well known. You know, you heard the bio. They've been in a lot of places, done a lot of things. But they kind of want to get a little dirt. Maybe they like, you know, what is it really like with your parents? What are they really like? and I love it when people ask me that question because I can look them in the eye and say, they are way better than you can imagine. Whatever the best thing you could imagine is that you have them on a pedestal, just raise it up because really they are the real deal. And the reason is because you'll see today that they're just so down to earth. They have been through a lot of struggles. You know, they faced a lot of struggles. They've tried all kinds of things. Some of the stuff they tried with us was crazy and it totally didn't work. And then a lot of it did. And they just were relentless about being great parents. And I think the thing that makes them so amazing is that they just have spent so much heart and effort in being great parents, and I think that's what makes them so amazing.
Yeah, but no, what they really want is the dirt. These people really want it.
What I have to say is, Noah, you're so nice to say that, but when all my kids were home, I did write a book called I Didn't Plan to Be a Witch. And sometimes I ask my kids, you know, what can you remember? I am so sorry if I scarred you forever because I was such a witch. and Noah says, no, you can remember. You can remember a few
no real witch, but I will tell you one quick story, which is I had a tough time staying in bed. All of us have parents of little kids know that this is like a crazy time of the day. And you won't find this in their books, but they did tie me to the bed.
We will admit it.
Just a nice, you know, around the ankle and then on the bedpost.
Well, it was a tie. It was a big wide necktie that I used, so I knew it wouldn't damage him, and it was actually one of the best techniques we ever figured out. He just stayed in bed after that. It was great. How many of your kids were crying when you left today to come here tonight? Oh, good. That makes me feel so comfortable, because all theirs were crying when we left to come here. Christy?
I don't really know yet what to say, but what I love is I've heard them refer to themselves as fellow strugglers, and some people ask me, do I feel kind of pressure being married into this family, and it's amazing because I don't feel any pressure, just a lot of motivation and a lot of hope and a lot of, you know, we can do this. And also, it's just really exciting to be in this room with all of you. I can feel your energy. It's a really good group.
Yeah, there's a good energy in the room. So I tell you, Linda has just finished. Maybe you'll get spontaneous applause for this, Linda. Linda just yesterday turned in the final manuscript on her latest book, which is called Grandmothering. Which you can read in two ways. You can read it as grandmothering, or you can read it as grandmothering. So she has advice for mothers and grandmothers.
Thank you. You don't know anything about that. That was very nice of you. But it has been a lot of fun. But boy, I'm so glad to get it off my back. But it is called Grandmothering: How to Make a Difference While Having the Time of Your Life. And I'm here to tell you, it just gets more and more fun, especially when you have kids like these guys have. It's awesome.
And so because she's been so busy, I'm roped into being sort of the MC. I'm going to be the roving sort of, I'm going to be kind of the guy who has control here tonight. That's what I'm going to be. But I've got one mic, but you've got three. And what I'd like to ask these guys to do is to spontaneously interrupt me, throw in things, contradict me, whatever they want to do, elaborate further, explain that was something that was not practical that I just said, or whatever. And I may call on them at times too, but they'll feel free to do whatever they want. So, here you are. By the way, how many first years are here? There are quite a few. That's interesting. And second years? More. See, I thought so, because all I know is that at Harvard, I never went anywhere as a first year. I just was home doing, we called them WACs, written analysis of case. You probably don't have those now, but I know you have a lot of our same case studies. I understand how, and so did Noah. It was a lot of Harvard case studies you used, right? Or did you? So you know, we're all in this together. We understand it. And by the way, just right off the bat, did you know that the case study method is one of the great parenting methods of all time? There have been some interesting studies showing, these are kids probably a little older than yours, but kids who make a big mistake. I mean, they just do a stupid thing, and they pay for it for years, and their parents pay for it for years. Something as simple as getting in a car with a driver who's been drinking, or trying a substance that they really don't know what it is. Just stupid things, shoplifting because someone dared them, little dumb things that they're way too smart to do. And the research is, why did they do it? And the answer is because they got blindsided by peer pressure. They had no idea how great the peer pressure would be. You know what would solve that? Case study method. We always we speak a lot to YPO, Young Presidents Organization, and they're probably just like this room, only maybe 10 years further along. So they've got companies, they're out in the world, and they've got kids who are teenagers. And we always tell them, you remember case studies? Sit a kid down and say, are you ever gonna try drugs? And the kid will say, no, of course not, Dad, I'm only 10 years old. Yeah, but let's have you imagine what might happen to you in 5 years, and then build right out of your imagination a little case study, right? You're at a party, the girl you like says, hey, you're the only one here that hasn't tried this, why, you'll feel good. You know, what do you get? And pin them down like a case study does. Don't let them off easy where they say, oh, I wouldn't do it. No, give me a real answer. What would you say? What if this happened? What if this happened? It's actually possible for parents to put kids in situations in their imagination, just like a case study. And it's a brilliant form of parenting. I don't know why more people don't do it. And MBAs and MBA spouses are the best ones at it, because you've had so much experience. Anyway, just that aside. Now, how experienced are you as a parent? Well, we've developed a one-question test that will tell you how experienced you are. In a minor crisis, do you grab the kid or do you grab the camera? Do you think that's a first child? That's probably number 4, maybe number 5. And the mom says, hey, honey, hand me the camera, look look how cute. He's kissing a pig. So there's actually a lesson there. Don't you think, some of you that, and it's amazing to me how many of you kept your hands up for a while, you get a little more relaxed, don't you, as it goes on? You folks that only have one, you'll worry a little less on the second one. I hear Linda on the phone a lot of times. One of the kids is calling, and I can't hear the other end of the conversation, but I hear Linda saying, "Honey, that's just normal. It's just a phase. It'll pass, you know." And so, don't you think that's part of it, honey? Just grab the mic if you want to say that. That's...
Absolutely. There are just so many. I promised myself. I said it on the way in. Promised myself I'd never forget how hard it was to have 2 and 3 little kids before you have anybody that can even get a diaper for you. And it's so hard. Wouldn't you agree, Christy? It is just the hardest time. We had a couple, Eli and Julie, living in New York City. They left their kids with us for a week. One time, the 2.5 and a 9-month-old. And the 9-month-old had a horrible cold, and we were both up all night, standing over him, hoping he was still breathing. Trying to, just like we were new parents again. And this 2.5-year-old's a pistol, and she just was bouncing off the walls everywhere. And we made cookies one day, and we had, about 6 cups of flour in there. We had all in there. She'd help me put the eggs and everything, and then I turned around and she turned the electric mixer on high. And honestly, I looked like Olaf, the snowman, It was crazy, and, it was so great to have him, but I don't think there was a better moment than when those parents came in with open arms saying, "We're ready to take him home." So, yes.
Hand the mic to Noah. I want to know, what do you do when all 6 of your kids spill their milk at the same meal?
I think we try to laugh.
Perfect answer.
My sister told me once that you should expect to have at least 5 spills a day. And if you're expecting those 5 spills, then 4 is not that bad.
If you only get 4, you're like, good day, good day. Well, remember this, you're way ahead of us on this. We're going to get to some more advanced stuff, but remember, family crisis plus time usually equals humor, okay? You'll remember that time when they all 6 did it at once, and you just got to have perspective.
And that, what we did do once when we were having a little spill trouble was we made a spill club. And it's a serious thing in our family, and I am the president, and I always am, because I spill more than all the kids. But in a moment of frustration, I thought that through. I spill all the time, so this was with my daughter, who spills all the time too. It's like, "Hey, let's make a club. We're the Spill Club." And she was like, "Yeah, I'm the Spill Club. I'm vice president." So now we have a little Spill Club.
I'll just say, "Spill Club, Spill Club."
Keep in mind they've got 6, so they can say that, right? They can say it. Now, I wanted to we're going to just present 5 principles to you today. We'll call them the 5 pillars. Noah just had 5 pillars in his company presentation today, so this was on my mind. But I'm trying to put them in business terminology, okay, guys and gals? So number 1, you got to do some strategic priority planning. And that's more important in a family than it is even in a business, okay? Well, let me illustrate. In fact, Linda, you come and illustrate this for a minute, because this is our family. Yeah, take that microphone there, and just walk them through this, because the lesson on strategic priority planning and why it is so critical in a family can actually be told faster with pictures than it can with words. And so this is kind of an ominous reminder. We're going to do the scary part of the presentation first.
This is us with our first 4 children, and it's so old it's turned yellow.
Don't keep your pictures too long.
We're sitting out in the forest. But
Noah's not there yet. This Noah's not there yet. He's still looking on from up high.
He's number 7.
Let's see, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so, but it doesn't take long to look like this. Before you know it, kids are grown up. This is just before our oldest daughter left for college. She was 16 when the baby was born.
So here's the time lapse. This one to this one is 9 years. 9 years. Some of you can see yourself in this one. Imagine now that you're going to be in that one in only 9 years. They'll all grow up.
Sarah's been listening to The Cure a lot, I think.
Sarah and what?
She's listening to The Cure a lot.
Oh yeah, Sarah's hairdo is
Listening
pretty...
to The Cure.
And Noah has appeared. I've got my arm on his shoulder. See, there he is. He's now made his appearance. And then just another 3 or 4 years, and you get that. And now...
This is actually our first grandson.
The first grandchild's come along.
And so then this was at Bear Lake a few years later, and there are a lot more now. We'll have 50 at Bear Lake. I was born and raised at Bear Lake, and we go up there in the summer. They all come up in July. And so this was one of those.
But here's the killer. Here's the message. Here's the ominous part.
Okay, so this kind of looks like the first one, right? Except that this is our daughter. And suddenly she has 4 children. It happens just like that. I know you're sitting there thinking, no, that will never happen. But it's amazing. Life goes really quickly. It's long because a lot happens in between, but sometimes it just seems like the years just fly by. So you have to really prioritize your family while they're home, even though you have so many other issues in your life.
So thank you, honey. So that's the lesson. I mean, look, you in this room have a lifespan expectancy. I'm going to probably raise this. Nationally, your age would have a life expectancy on average of 84, live to be 84. But this is BYU. I'm going to guess the average age length in this room will be close to 90. And so you will actually have each of your kids with you in your home for less than 1/5 of your life. That's the scary thing. If you have a child with you till 18 and then they're off to school or whatever, 1/5. And so the simplest lesson of all is strategic priority planning. You have to say to yourself, when that kid leaves, and some of you are sitting here with babies, there's a 10-week-old baby, you can't imagine that kid living, but that 18 years will go so fast. And if you've got, what's the oldest child anyone? Has anyone got teenagers? Who's got teenagers? I bet you're getting close. Anyone got a 10-year-old? Look at that, there's some 10-year-olds. There's the top of the crop. And so you're talking about 8 years. You got 8 more years with that child. And then they'll be gone. I mean, you'll still be their parent. You'll still try to guide them. You'll still feel the stewardship. But believe me, your influence will drop by a huge amount when they're off to school. And so you'll still have your career. You'll still have your golf game. You'll still have your politics. You'll still have your church calling. Nothing else will change that much, but the child will go. And so, obvious lesson, but one you need to remind yourself of all the time, especially, I mean, part of the unfairness of it is, you second years, a year from now, you'll be in the very cusp of your first position. It'll be dog eat dog. You'll be competing with people who aren't even married and who can put in 16-hour days. And you'll think, how do I keep up with them? What do I do? And it's tough. It's tough out there. And you will have to remind yourself often, those kids and your spouse are still your first priority. You think that's easy because we all know it's true. But in that pressure moment, a lot of people forget for a while. And I've seen this. And so has Linda. We talk about this a lot of time. We'll see these people about 10 years beyond you, and someone will say something like, I know my family's my priority, but I'm in the middle of a merger. I have got to give my heart and soul to this for the next 6 months. But when I get it done, then I'll make up for it. I'll get back. I'll be with my wife. We'll take a family vacation. I'll start exercising again. I'll get back in shape, and all those things. And I'll tell you, it's catch-up football. They never make it. They lose so much in that time when they bail that they can never catch up. So don't let it happen. That's the ominous part. I'm not going to be that serious very much, but I really believe that. Number 2, I don't even know if anyone forms general partnerships anymore because they're always LLCs, but the point is, as you're all learning, when you have a general partnership or you have an LLC, let's talk LLC, you might have plenty of members and they might have equal ownership, or you might just have two and they might be 50-50 owners, but one of them will be the manager or one will be the general partner. And I've found that that kind of organizational thinking is powerful within a couple and within a family, because equality in a marriage doesn't mean sameness. I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but picture me at the Harvard Business School in an era when feminism was just catching fire. And we had a couple of women in our section who wanted to turn every single case study into a lesson on gender equality. I mean, they wouldn't let it loose. They just would not let it loose. And it was positive in some ways, but I had a French friend who sat right next to me who I would love to find again sometime, because I wondered so many times about him. But he was a very flamboyant French guy named Dominique Mars. And Dominique listened to these feminists for just about as long as he could, and then one day he couldn't take it anymore, and he went up and asked the professor for the microphone, and he preached a spontaneous little sermon that I thought was the greatest thing I'd ever heard. He said, I believe in, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but basically his message was, I believe in equality, but you foolish feminists have made the assumption that equality means sameness. And it doesn't. We have a thing in France, vive la différence. And the whole world would crash and burn if men and women ever became the same. And he just got more and more worked up. And he said, in a company, do the vice president of marketing and the vice president of production have to be the same? No, they're very different, and their differences complement each other. I could tell he hadn't planned this, but he just got warmer and warmer. He just kept preaching. And when he finally sat down, I thought, man, I just wish I had that recorded, because of course we want equal marriages, and of course we want oneness, and we want unity, but we want more than that. We want synergy. And so the bottom line that we think works is form a couple of general partnerships, or LLCs, in your mind. And what we like to do is call one of them the outer and one the inner. The outer meaning what goes on outside of our home, our career, our investments, our hobbies, our house, what we're trying to do, everything we're trying to do outside the home. And then have another one called the inner LLC, or the inner partnership. And it's everything that goes on inside the home. Now, what is the equity percentage on those two between spouses? 50-50, exactly equal. No one owns more equity than the other. But there's a manager, or there's a general partner. And for many people in the position you're in now, in the position Linda and I were in, we had our first child at Harvard in the middle of the 2 years, and then we had our second one right after we took our first job. And Linda made the decision to be a full-time mom and stay with those kids, although she's a violinist and she was still teaching lessons, and she had the opportunity to do a lot of things professionally. But she decided, at least for that moment, it was most important to be with those kids. And that's the reason why we felt like we had to have this inner and outer partnership, with a clear understanding that we talked about a lot, that we were precisely equal equity partners. But since she was around the home more, her stewardship was to be the general partner on the inner and to fill me in. To make sure that I was up to speed, to be sure that I wasn't left out of anything that was going on with one of those kids or with the house or whatever. And by the same token, I'm the general partner in the outer, feeling the stewardship to be sure Linda knows what's going on in the business and in the career, and that she's not blindsided by something that she didn't understand. Which led us to another thing called the Sunday Executive Management Sessions. It was pretty obvious, just like it is to you, that there's only 2 people in your top management of your family, and that's the 2 of you. Now, we happen to believe that when a kid turns 8, son or daughter, you're 8 years old today, you're being promoted into middle management of our family. And you will now have certain responsibilities for those who are younger members of the organization than yourself. And you know, 8-year-olds, I've often thought, there's such genius in the fact that we baptize kids when they're 8. An 8-year-old, some of you know this, Linda knows it, others of you know it, an 8-year-old's a miracle. And they stay kind of miraculous like that for maybe 2-3 years when they're in this beautiful little position of age that's just magic, and it never comes again. They're smart, they're conceptual, they can understand things, they're flattered by responsibility. That's not going to last. They still think you know quite a lot. That's not going to last. This is a golden time. Noah and Christy have 2 in that age range right now. It's not going to last. But for right now, they're brilliant. And so, you know, we would have our executive Sunday management session, just Linda and I, and on Sunday, and we'd have to do it early in the morning sometimes so we could get to ward council or whatever. And then afterwards, we'd have our middle management meeting where we'd have the ones who were over 8 and we'd give them their assignments. They were often called tutors, which meant that the little guys were called tooties, which was kind of fun. And the assignments would be made and so on, and it was kind of like delegation.
Let me just say that all of our kids kind of do this in their own way, but often when we call Noah and Christy, they say, well, we can't talk right now on a Sunday night. We can't talk right now. We're having our executive session. And I would love to hear them because they are the master planners.
So we don't actually call it executive session, but
that's our name. Noah would rather die than use the same name for it. No, it's the new improved version.
No, we try to just spend that time every Sunday to think through sort of, and we're still working on that for sure. We're always kind of, it's a wide range of, you know, we try to think about our long-term goals and then kind of push it towards today. We always review the current week and kind of what's coming up soon, but we're working on that. But we have worked on implementing this inner and outer, and so that we can kind of share our feelings with each other about what's happening that maybe, you know, as I'm working in our new company and whatever, I very anxiously want to know everything that's happening in the home with each of the kids, and Christy wants to know what's happening in the company, and we try our best to make sure that we're advising each other and helping each other on those things. And so my goal is to do everything I can to be that, to do all I can in the home and listen carefully to what Christy's learning, and she, on the other hand, is coming to some of our company meetings and trying to be a contributor and give me advice on what she thinks about a certain employer situation. And I can tell you that advice from her is intuitive, it's clear, and it's from a perspective that is very dear to me, obviously, and so it helps me a ton in my career. So hopefully we're helping each other that way.
Christy, say something.
I do think that they're very helpful. It's good to touch base, and it's really good to go through, because then Noah can say, hey, Lila needs help with, will you just read to her at this time or whatever, and he just kind of steps in, and it's just really good to know where he can help out and help with the kids. But we go through, on those meetings, we go through everything. We go through kids, we go through finances, we go through upcoming things, the week, the goals, and it's
so for Linda, for Christy and for Linda, I'm just going to push back a little on this, and because and tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I think a lot of MBA spouses, I don't want to overstate this, but I just think it's natural for you to sort of feel, hey, you know, my husband or my wife, whichever one is in the MBA program, the one who's not is saying, you're progressing, you're there every day, you're learning, your learning curve is so steep, you're picking up on so many exciting things, you're going to be interviewing, you're There's all these things, and I'm doing this thing I know is really important at home with these kids, but it doesn't help me not feel a little jealous of the excitement you're facing every day, whereas my part is pretty routine. I'm just thinking that's a pretty natural thing to feel. And is your work really so important that when you come home from school, you really need every second that you're home to work on tomorrow's case, or could you possibly do these dishes and put this baby to bed, okay? I just think that's a natural resentment. What do you two say about that?
I can hear myself saying several times, I just need 8 arms and 8 of me, and I just need like, several times when we were going to school and we had that 5th baby with the heart condition, we were going through a lot, but I do have this image of Noah on his knees saying, we just need strength beyond our own because we can't do this by ourselves, you know. And that's been a beautiful thing too, to kind of grow that way and try to figure out how we can do this, because we've always wanted to be good time managers, not very good at it still, but we've been kind of forced in situations where that, and I feel like we've been pretty guided, and anyway.
I do have to say, what you're not saying is that Christy is deathly ill for 24 weeks of every one of these 6 pregnancies. She is such a champion. And then Noah steps in. I mean, you know, when we come home, she's dead. She's out like a light, and he's making dinner. It is a huge partnership thing. But, you know, if you really prioritize, you can find time. I don't know how you did it to this day, because that was really tough. She was pregnant with the 6th baby when the 5th one was going through heart surgery. Anyway, kudos to you guys. But they are terrific planners, and I think that's one of your great successes.
So going back to this one again, if you have this sort of thing with these 2 general partnerships, or 2 LLCs, so to speak, here's what I want to suggest to you. You want to try to change the chemistry so that it's not you almost, if you're the limited partner, you want to be demanding, okay? Like let's say I'm the guy out going to MBA school or working, my wife's at home with the kids. I don't want to be the guy who says, hey, great, nice division of labor, you do your thing, I'll do mine. That's the worst thing you can say. What you want to say instead is, I happen to know you're doing the most eternally important thing. I want to know. I want to be in on this. I want you to tell me everything that's going on with these kids. I demand to be involved. I want to come home and get involved with these kids. I want to come home and help with this house. That's the way to do it. And then you'll have a wife who's there not pleading for you to help, but almost saying, oh honey, it's okay. You just go do your work. I don't really need you right now, you know. That's a nice reversal of the chemistry, right? And if you're the mom, you don't want to be the one to say, well, I'm sure glad you're out there making money for me, honey. I'm just happy here and how. You want to be just the opposite. I want to know what's happening in your career. Every once in a while, we'll talk to a spouse of someone in one of these YPO companies, and we'll say, what does your husband do? And they'll without any embarrassment say, I have no idea, I'm not even interested. You know, and I'm like, why? Where's the partnership in that? I mean, the division of labor and the splitting of roles can be dangerous, and it can be ridiculous. It should be a thing where, yeah, of course we do it out of necessity, but we demand to be involved. That's how you'd be if you were in an LLC and you were 50% owner of the company. You wouldn't allow the manager to just go off and make his decisions and say, well, good job, buddy, I'm so glad I don't have to do it. You'd say, no, I'm a 50% owner. I want involvement, I want equity. And so I think that's the way to make it work.
One quick, hold the microphone because I'm going to use my hands. So one quick thought on that is, you know, if we think of it as, somebody taught me this and it's helped me a lot, helped us a lot. If you think of it as, you know, this is my realm and this is your realm, however that works with each individual couple or family, you know, different roles can play into different places here. But if it's not about, I'm taking this ground, you're taking this ground, but if it's about how can I help you here and how can I help you here, and the debate, you know, it naturally finds its space because I'm trying to help you here and I'm trying to help you here, that makes things fit together a lot better. And then the second thing, is something my mission president taught me. he has an amazing equality and yet different roles with his wife. And he was telling Christy and I about this, and he said he regularly would come home from work or whatever business trip or thing he had, and he would look his wife in the eyes and he'd say, I just want to remind you that this is not about you supporting me in my career. This is about what I'm doing to support our family. The reason I work is because I want our family to be okay and to have opportunities. And I believe that whoever is the breadwinner or whatever the career is, if we put it in that perspective, that I work because I want to support our family. I want to provide opportunities for our family. I don't work to try to get ahead or be ahead in life. I work to support the most important thing, which is the family. I think that helps balance things out.
So that's awesome.
Were you going to talk about Five Facet Review?
Yeah, let me get to that. But I think just, how many of you like C.S. Lewis? We got any C.S. Lewis fans in here? Would you all please read your children the Chronicles of Narnia as soon as they're old enough, okay? Because it'll teach them to understand the atonement better than any other thing you could do for one thing. But I was reminded of it because here's what C.S. Lewis said. There's a lot of good quotes, but I think this is the best one. C.S. Lewis said, quote, "The homemaker is the ultimate career. All other careers exist for one purpose only, and that is to support that ultimate career." Isn't that awesome? So you get out there in the world where you run into people who are saying, oh, I just need my spouse to support me more in my career. Well, I'm sure there's some truth to that, but it is backwards. Noah's right. You know, the one that goes to work is the one doing the support of what's going on in the home. And we're lucky enough in the gospel, we know that. But we need to remind ourselves. So let's move on and we'll get to what Linda's saying. We call this parenting by objective. You've all talked about management by objective. You got to be clear on what your goals are, and it's so interesting to us as we go around talking to people that own businesses that you can say to them, hey, what's your mission statement for your business? Oh, it's right here on the wall in gold leaf and calligraphy. Oh, what are your plans for the next year? Well, here's my pro formas. You can read them, you know. Well, what are you trying to do in 5 years? Here's our goals, you know, and they're just crystal clear, and that's why they're successful. And then sometimes if you want a little disappointment, you say to that same guy, tell me what your mission statement is for your family. And what are your 5-year goals for your family? And what are your 1-year goals? And show me your pro forma for your household. And they're like, well, my goal is to be a good dad. Well, would you say your goal at work is to be a good CEO? I think you'd have a little more detail than that, you know? And somehow we've just got to realize that the same sort of objective, goal-oriented thinking that works in business or law. We got a few law students here, do we? Have we got law school? Just one? Well, 2. Oh, there we go. There's a couple. Okay. Because it's the same thing in law school. It's the strategic objectives that you set. And I'm just going to tell you ours. I'm not going to suggest that you would follow these. And Noah and Christy have a little different slant and so on. We decided that we wanted to divide our kids into 3 groups because we thought the needs were so different. And part of this is gospel-based, okay? We felt like preschoolers, and some of you know this because you were in Joy School, right? We thought the goal for preschoolers up until the time they're 5 or 6 is joy. That's what Nephi said. Men are that they might have joy. The reason for mortality is joy. Why try to push these little 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds to be responsible? They don't get it yet. Why not teach them joy instead? Instead of the responsibility of doing the dishes, why don't we teach them the joy of doing the dishes? Instead of the responsibility of cleaning their room, how about the joy of how good it feels when they clean? How about turning everything into joy? And that was out of that idea. And with a group of Harvard Business School MBAs, where Joy School was born, it was like, what if that's the goal? And what if you can break down joy into different parts? The joy of the body, the joy of the earth, the joy of imagination, the joy of creativity. And you who've been in Joy School, that's what you were taught by by your mom teachers. And so we think that the goal, the objective, the parenting by objective for little kids is think of it in the context of joy. Then, as they approach baptism, poor little kids, they have to make a little flip. And now the goal is responsibility. Because that's the age where they're flattered by responsibility. And Linda was nice enough to say she's reading our book right now, Teaching Your Children Responsibility. The funny thing about it is the chapters in that book are almost the same as the one in Joy, only they have the word responsibility instead of joy. We're not teaching, you're 8 now, we're not teaching you the joy of cleaning up your room anymore. We're teaching you the responsibility of cleaning up your room. And by the way, isn't it great that you're old enough now that you can be in middle management and sort of part of the solution instead of the part of the problem? We're really relying on you, and the whole thing changes. Then when they get to be sort of adolescents, changes again, doesn't it? What's the biggest problem of adolescents and teenagers? In a nutshell, it is that everything to them is a mirror. Everything's a mirror. Oh, I don't know if I want to be seen with that kid. How will that affect my reputation? Or, am I in the right group? Do I have the right, am I on the right social media list? Am I, you know, Snapchatting with the right people?
No, honey, I have to interrupt here because you don't give teenagers a bad rap. I
know, I do too.
They're so awesome. Not every day in every way, but they are so awesome. Noah was the coolest teenager. We had so much fun with him. And now I know that there are other families that are struggling with teenagers, and it's just partly because they come who they are. They're great families, but they are struggling. But by and large, I think the teenagers brought as much joy as the little kids. They are totally awesome. So don't start hyperventilating when you think about a 13-year-old.
You got 3 with 10-year-olds in here, Linda. They're getting a little scared. They're going to be...
I know, Noah and Christy have got a 12-year-old, so you go and where you're, but that kid is going to be an awesome teenager. So
just think of that, Linda. No one in this room yet has a teenager but us.
That's right.
None of you have made any teenage parenting mistakes yet. But all I'm saying is it's a conceptual thing, all right? There are 3 sort of divisions in our mind. The little ones are joy, the middle ones, the middle-aged kids are responsibility, and the older ones need to learn charity. They need to learn empathy. They need to learn to be the kid who goes to school and doesn't sit at lunch with the popular kids, but goes and sits with the kids who are by themselves. Boy, that takes guts for a kid to do that. And you can raise kids who are that kind of leaders if you shift your objective to helping them to think with empathy. I think Linda had an experience growing up with your mom that taught you that. You'll never forget it.
That. I mean, I don't want to say so much about Noah, but he's really good at this. He used to pick out people that really needed help and really go for it. But when I was young, I guess 12, you know, they used to have dances when kids, like I guess it was 13. They used to have dances just for young kids in junior high all the time, and I hated those dances because I was never asked to dance. I was a wallflower of the world. I had these really ugly salmon-colored cat-eye glasses. My hair was a mess. I didn't know what to do with it. I was terrible. And one day I was begging my mother, please don't make me go to school. Please, they're going to have this dance. I hated it. I just had to sit in the corner. She said, Belinda, you go out there and find somebody that needs help more than you do. You find somebody that needs a friend. Okay. So I went, and sure enough, there she was. I thought, oh no, not her. Because, you know, nobody talked to her at all. This darling girl was an albino. She had pure white hair, white eyes. She had a skin disease. Nobody talked to her at all. And I thought, oh, I can't do this. I can't do this. But I did. I went and sat by her and started asking questions. And it was the greatest lesson of my life, because she became a really dear friend. And actually, she died as a young adult because of her diseases. I was so glad that I had that experience with her. But boy, I just think it's so important to send kids out when they're teenagers to find somebody that really needs help. Do you want to comment on that?
Noah, do you remember, this is unfair to Noah, because Christy was the same way, but do either of you remember a particular moment when, as a young teenager, something clicked in your mind and you found the courage to seek those that needed help rather than those that would make you look good?
I would say that my mom and dad taught me about this, and they made it clear that that's a noble and important thing to do. But also, I think I just watched my siblings do it too. And you know, I have a lot of older siblings. I'm number 7, as you heard there. And I think my parents had created this kind of culture, but I watched, you know, my older brothers and sisters, and I watched how they kind of found those that were left out, and it was inspiring to me. I get emotional talking about my siblings because they're amazing. But you know, I have examples of, you know, kids that will come up to my parents 20 years later and say, you know, your son, I'm speaking about my older brother Talmadge is one of the examples that come to mind. You know, he changed my life because he asked me to a dance, and nobody was, you know, nobody ever, you know, I'd never been asked to dance before. And, you know, it's just, there's a power in adolescence, in middle and high school age. There's never another time in your life where you're just in this sort of, this emotional kind of volatile kind of time in your life where you're in the same building over and over, day after day. And if we can get, you know, our young people to think, I can change people's lives by just being friendly to them. It's a powerful thing that can sort of change perspectives. But I mean, and really the best example, and the first thing that made me fall in love with Christy was when I saw her empathy to people, but every time I meet somebody that went to high school with Christy, they just say, let me tell you this story about this situation where Christy, you know, would come in and she'd be out on a date with this strange guy who nobody would go. Anyway, there's all these things, and that really is inspiring, and it uplifts people. And I think it's a culture we can try to create in our. And sometimes as parents, you know, we could get caught up in like. I've seen parents get caught up in this, the wrong side of it, instead of just encouraging kids to help those in need. But anyway, those are random.
You know, I think now again, let's put this in context. What are we saying here? Just a little thought that you need to consider for your own family, because you're the stewards of your own kids. But if you choose, okay, we're going to teach, joy is going to be our byword for the young ones, then responsibility, then charity. When we speak outside the church, we don't say charity, we say sensitivity or empathy. But I'd rather say here the word charity, because we know that's, without that we're nothing. And I know none of you have kids that age, but set it in your mind right now that you have the power as parents, and you're all leaders. You have the power to create leader kids, and to start with that in their early adolescence, where they start getting in their mind that they're there to be leaders and to help others, not to be followers. And just the last quick story to end that, Noah mentioned Talmadge, who's the next older to Tal. They were always very close, and they were both student leaders and so on. But Tal chose to come here to BYU to play basketball. And he was a guy that everybody recognized. He's taller than Noah, he's 6'9", he's a big kid. And I took him down for the first day at BYU. We just lived in Salt Lake, so we just drove down. And I said, hey, we got a minute before your class, let's go to lunch. And so we went to the Union Building, and we were sitting there having lunch. And I was trying to engage Talmadge I was trying to do the dad thing, you know. Tal, it's your first day of college, man. I'm proud of you. Look out for this. I'm going to give you a little advice, kind of thing. And I noticed Tal's, he's not paying any attention to me. He's just totally distracted. And all of a sudden he gets up. I'm in mid-sentence of some advice. He gets up and says, I'm sorry, Dad, I need to go over here. There's a couple of kids over there that really look lost. And he went over and sat down at this table with a couple of kind of lost-looking kids who were also freshmen. And he never came back to my table. I finished the lunch. I went over and said, good to see you, Tal, have fun. I realized he didn't need me. He was there to help other people. I thought, man, somewhere in my youth or childhood, I must have done something good, because here's this kid who's a leader. So have whatever you decide, but my point is, think ahead. What are your goals for your kids? What are you going to teach them, and in what order? Now, at the same time, don't get too specific. Don't get to the point where you're saying, well, that one's going to be a doctor, that one's going to be a lawyer, and that one's going to be an MBA. learn to watch your kids and learn to decide what they are and what they're doing. Linda's going to end in a minute with an idea for a 5 facet review where we sit down and talk about each kid and say, how's he doing physically? How's he doing mentally? How's he doing socially, emotionally, spiritually? And try to sort out, who is this kid really? I mean, you and I believe in a premortal life. We don't believe these. It's hard to believe, but most of the parenting world thinks the kid is a little lump of clay that they can sculpt into whatever they want it to be. Do you have any little lumps of clay? Do you have any that just sort of, they're just malleable, you can turn them into, or did you kind of know after you brought them home from the hospital for 2 days what their personality was? Where did they get that personality? We happen to know through eons of time. Our job as parents is figure out who they are. What are they really? Look in their eyes. Who are you really? Who are you in there? Figure it out, and that's the way you'll raise that child. Now, the last thing, and then we'll get back to a little more on that 5 facet review. Oh, so this was the thing here. Take a picture of that if you've got your camera, just to burn it into your minds, because I want you to, now maybe you'll think of a better thing, but have those objectives, and keep your phone out, because I'm going to give you some homework in a minute of some websites to go to, but you gotta have goals, and they need to be segmented somehow so that you always know, just like you're gonna know in your business. Someone walks in, what's your goal? You tell them. Your kids, what's your goal? You tell them with equal clarity. Now, since this is the age where your kids are now, virtually all of you have preschoolers. The advantage of Joy School, we do a little like a commercial here for a minute, because Joy School is the cheapest, easiest, no, it's not the easiest. It's the cheapest way to educate kids on joy, because it's a co-op. You basically don't pay anything. But the cool thing is your best friends are teaching your kids. Do you understand that's how it works? You form a group. The best time to do this is probably right when you get out in your first location after MBA school. You get settled, you find some other moms, you moms, and dads are involved too, but the moms usually set it up, and there's a group of 4 or 5, and you rotate as the teacher. And then all the materials are online, and so you know we're teaching the joy of the body today, next month we're teaching the joy of creativity, and so on, and all the materials are there. And it follows the idea that men are, that they might have joy. So here's the, I don't know if your camera will even focus that closely. I was going to go online and show you the site, but those are the joys. There's 12 of them, and I think all of you would agree that's the things you'd want your kids to know. So I'll give you a homework assignment of joyschools.com, and you can look on there and see. And if that's the goal you adopt for the preschoolers, then you move on as they get a little older. Now, final part before Linda goes a little further into the 5 facet review. I had a professor at the Harvard Business School, and his name was Sterling Livingstone. And before I show you a picture of him, I was feeling like I had too many balls in the air and I needed more arms. It's exactly what Christy said. Only this poor guy only has 4 arms, and you wanted 8. But I just felt like I was out. This was right after, even more after school than while I was there, and I needed more. But I knew there was another kind of balance that I missed even more. Usually when you think of balance, you think of what? Balancing career and family and church and hobbies or whatever, right? A certain number of interests or needs that you have to balance your time between. But there's another kind of balance that I want to just warn you about. And it's, the first one's more like juggling. You know, you don't want to drop anything. You got to juggle the family, the work, the church calling, and so on. But this kind is a little more like tightrope walking, because you don't want to fall off on the extreme on either side. So let me ease into that by showing you Professor Sterling Livingstone, the most scary man I've ever met, who would march into class every day, and he had a mantra. He would try to make us say this with him, because his course was starting new enterprises. And he would say, "You are in control. We are teaching you here at the business school to be CEOs, and therefore you must always act and never react." He would just, that was his whole thing. And I just thought he walked on water. I thought this guy could do anything, and he'd tell us all of his success stories. And I decided right then and there that I was always going to act and never react, and I was always going to be in charge. And it was the worst kind of thinking I'd ever done. And then we came to the summer between years, and I got this internship with an airline that doesn't even still exist called Pan American. Last names, I met them because I was hitchhiking on the Big Island, and they picked me up in this old beat-up car, and I was in Kona, if you know the islands, and I was trying to get over to Hilo, which in those days was a pretty long drive. The roads were bad, and I got in their car, and we drove down the road about 300 yards, and the car stopped. And I thought, well, I picked the wrong ride. This is an old car. But no, Rusty said, you come, we show you a big waterfall most tourists never see. So they took me down this path, and we saw this huge waterfall. And then we got back in the car, and we drove another mile or so and stopped again. And Honey said, I want you to come, we show you where my mother is buried. I'm like, okay. And she showed me the grave. And then we got back in, and make a long story short, from early in the morning, I stayed with them all day. And as the sun was setting, we pulled into Hilo. And I said, I am the luckiest guy. You were I thought I'd have to get maybe 10 hitchhike rides to get across the island. You were the first car. And you happened to be going all the way to Hilo. This is awesome. And Rusty looked a little confused, and he said, no, we were not going to Hilo. I said, what do you mean? You just drove me for 12 hours across the island to Hilo. Where were you going? He said, we were going to the grocery store. And I'm like, wait a second. You were going to the grocery store in Hilo? No, we were going to the grocery store in Kona. And I'm looking at him like, you're crazy, man. And he's looking at me like I'm crazy. And then he said, we can go to the grocery store tomorrow. Can I take you to Hilo tomorrow? Like I was the dumb one, you know? And you gotta put in my mind, I've got Sterling Livingstone, right? I'm a CEO, I'm in charge. I'm gonna act, not react. I'm gonna plan everything. I'm not gonna let anything get in the way of my plans. And now I'm seeing another way. And I spent the rest of that summer in a strange sort of, I was really young. I probably went to MBA school too early. I was 24, and I was thinking, do I really want to be Sterling Livingstone, or would I kind of rather be Rusty? And Rusty was kind of winning in my mind. And then and all this is just a lead up to tell you one thing that I want to leave with you. There's this fascinating word which is really bastardized and misdefined. I mean, there's a movie about it, and everyone thinks it means fate, dumb luck, or whatever. What serendipity actually means, and I'd love it if you'd remember this, because to me it was the most important thing in my first few years after school. Serendipity actually means a state of mind. This is the definition from the man who coined the word, a guy named Horace Walpole, an author in England. Serendipity is a state of mind whereby a person, through awareness and sensitivity, frequently finds something better than the thing he was seeking. I just love that concept, especially for type A people like all of you are. You got your goals, you got your plans, you want to go out and conquer the world. But what about in the back of your mind somewhere, a little serendipity that says, I've got a state of mind where through awareness and sensitivity, I frequently find something better than the thing which I was seeking. Do you see the application of that? I mean, there could be macro applications where you're working for a big company and you get in a conversation with somebody one day and he just has a great idea and you just can't turn it loose, and before you know it, you've started a company or whatever. Or it could be something very small, like you're home, you're loaded down, you brought a briefcase full of work, you're trying to get it done before you go the next morning, and little Jimmy comes in and he's got a kite and the wind's blowing, and he's like, Dad, will you come and fly the kite with me? Guess what? That's the serendipity. Turns out that's a better thing than working on that paper right then. And you go do it. It's sort of the acknowledgement of spontaneity. It's the idea of saying, even though I'm going into a field and I'm studying a discipline in school, I'm getting an MBA, which is supposed to mean I'm a planner, I'm a guy who calls the shots, I'm a guy who manages. That's all great, but don't let it go too far that way. Remember that the pendulum needs to swing, and you've got to have times where you do totally crazy things, spontaneous things, things that just make sense in the moment, and they don't fit into your long-range plans. They don't further your objectives. They're just the right thing to do at the moment, and that'll make such a big difference. And especially in this room, I wouldn't say this in any other MBA school in the world. One of the things that's serendipity is inspiration and nudges and little feelings that you should do something. And we just lost a prophet who was probably the best at that as any man who'd ever lived. You've all heard the stories, right? He felt an impulse. You've probably all heard the initial story of the time he didn't do it, didn't follow the nudge, and then how he regretted it the rest of his life. So for us, serendipity is not only what we observe. Walpole said through sensitivity and awareness. We would say a state of mind where through sensitivity, awareness, and inspiration, a person might find something better than that which he was seeking. And that would be my hope for all of you. So while Linda talks a little about this 5-facet review, take your camera. This is your homework, because these are some websites that we just want you to visit. Some of you will like one more than the other. Some of you will skip over some of them. A couple of them are our kids' blogs. You know, we have one daughter who, we had a New York Times #1 bestseller once, and it sold nearly 1 million copies, and we thought we were so great. Here we got this daughter who has a blog that has 3 million people who read her blog every day. And I'm like, boy, you did that. I'm not writing any more books, you know. So that's the 71 Toes. And how many of you have seen 71 Toes? Quite a few of you know that already. That's our daughter, Shawnee. And Power of Families is our other daughter who, it was Power, you're going to love this. It was Power of Moms, and it was really big. But she started feeling that it was the wrong name, because she wanted Power of Families, the mom and the dad working together. And so she actually had the courage to change the name. The next one, Dripping with Passion, is our youngest daughter. And all I'm going to say about that is you'll get a kick out of reading her blog. But they live in London, which makes it extra interesting. But take a picture of that and just go through it and see which ones work for you. And they're all interactive. We'd love feedback on any of the stuff that you see. And so, Linda, let's have the 5-facet review.
Well, we promised we'd be done by 9:30, but I'd like you to be thinking of some questions, because we want to be sure that we get to what you want to talk about or what you came for tonight. And maybe just the details of how to tie your kids in bed, or, you know, whatever.
Use a square knot.
But I do want to say that probably our best partnership thing has been, and there are times when Rich has been gone a lot. When we first got a job, we moved to Washington, D.C., and he was gone 4 days a week. And I just got the house all organized, I got the kids organized, everything, and then Mr. Fun came home, and everything went out the window. And you know, we just had fun all weekend, and you know, no responsibilities. Sorry, honey. But then, you know, he was gone again, and it really, really was a hard time. But it was a short time. We decided it wasn't worth the family to keep doing that. But I think the thing that helped us most on those really stretching times is to have what we call a 5-facet review. And that was just once a month. We'd like to go out the first Friday of every month. You can decide what works for you. And when he was traveling, when we started to get internet and so on, he could call in on a smartphone or whatever, or he could actually call on the phone. But it got easier and easier as time got on with the internet. And we just talked about the kids. We just spent, you know, an hour and a half just talking about the kids. We went out to our favorite restaurant. We took pad of paper. We took nothing else. It was those days when I used to, he said, don't bring the checkbook, because you always just say, we can't be out of money. I still have checks. And, you know, those days. But it really was wonderful, because we went through the kids and each of their 5 facets, just briefly. And usually they were fine. But then we come to something and go, there's a little problem here. We need to talk about this together. So the 5 facets were physically. Like, how is Saren doing? Our oldest child is named Saren. Richard wanted her name to be Serendipity. And I said, no, they will call her Dippity. We're not doing it. And so her name is Saren, but how is Saren doing physically? And we just talked about it for a minute. How is she doing emotionally? I mean, what are the ups and downs? What's going on? How is she doing mentally? How does she think? Is she right brain, left brain? How, you know, and you can tell that. You can start with that, a 3-year-old, 2-year-old. It's a little bit shorter when your kids are younger, but it really is fun to talk about. And then how is she doing, socially? I mean, Saren was extremely shy. She ran the household at home, and then we put her in this nursery school when we lived in DC. But he struggled with reading. But it was so good to have a partner, but also, you know, guys are great problem solvers. They really are. You know, sometimes I think I was just like all over the place, like, oh my gosh, what can we do? What can we do? And well, tell me the details, and then let's figure out the solution. You're great at that. And so,
the underlying principle there, by the way, and you know this, who's the expert on your kids? Is it some guy that wrote a parenting book? Is it some psychologist that's interviewed a lot of other people's kids? You're the only, again, the pre-existence. You have the kids you have for a reason. You're the expert on them. That doesn't mean you can't recruit help from people that have thought a lot about it and so on, but you want to be the one. You create a strategy, and imagine in this 5-facet review, Linda's giving me assignments. I'm the equal equity partner, but I'm the junior partner, and Linda's taking notes. And I know that next month we're going to be there again having this meeting, and there's going to be follow-up. Did you do it? Did we do it? Have we made progress here? How's she doing now socially? And it's a month-to-month thing.
So Chris and I are doing this now. Explain how you do it. I don't know detail.
We do it. It's really helpful just to go down each kid. Let me think. We try to do it once a month, like I said. But anytime that comes up, we also say, hey, we need to sit down and talk about diagnosis and stuff.
Yeah, we have it on our calendar at a certain time, at a certain day of the month, and invariably with everything going on, we are working on our consistency with it, and so we'll try to fit it in wherever we can. But so I wouldn't say we're experts at it yet, but we're trying and we're working on it. It's definitely helpful.
Yeah, we started it when our youngest was like 6 months old. Our oldest was 6 months old, and they were really quick.
So guys and gals, be excited. I mean, our bottom line message to you is you're going to have an exciting life. You're going to have an exciting church life. You're going to have an exciting business life. You're going to have an exciting social life. The whole world's out there. You're going into it at a fantastic time. You have the world by a string. But the most exciting part of your life, not the most... I know you know it's the most important. I know you know it's the most long-lasting. I know you know it's the callings you'll never be released from, and on. But I'm here to tell you, we're here to tell you, it's also the most exciting part of life. Make your family exciting. Don't think of it as a burden. Think of it as an enormously exciting opportunity.
And a huge joy. It is the most fun we ever had. You have to keep reminding yourself how much fun you're having. You just keep reminding yourself, this is fun. But, you know, as you look back, it really was the most fun. It is awesome. So, okay, what are your questions? And we're going to have really short answers.
Really short answers, because we're going to get you out of here at 9:30. It's 20 after right now.
We know there's a lot of inquisitive minds.
I'm about to ask my second, which will make 2 under 2. Do you have any tips for surviving this phase of just really on one that one?
Yes, have your husband give you a blessing. No, listen, all you can do is smile. How many of you have had like 2 under 3 or under 2? Isn't it exciting? Isn't it wonderful? It just about drives you crazy.
This might make you feel a little bit better. Our oldest daughter had an almost 5-year-old, a 3.5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and then she had twins. So she had 5 under 5.
5 under 5.
Right, she barely survived, but she.
Of course, she's dead now, but we weren't going to tell you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Something I've been impressed about with you guys is how you carve your own path, and I think we have so many blogs and things that we can read to go to. So what's your advice for carving our own path, knowing what works?
Awesome question. Could you hear in the back? She said there's so many paths, so many blogs, so many philosophies, so many ways to go. And I love that question because you got to be critics. You guys, just like you're a critic on what movies you go to or on what books you read and so on, just, this sounds funny because in a way, don't you think in the church we're sort of almost, we're almost of two minds. When it comes to the church, we want to be obedient and want to follow the prophet, we want to do what is right, and we know that's coming from God. I would want you to be, on other things, exactly the opposite of that. I'd want you to be cynical, question everything. Don't assume that anyone's an expert. Don't assume that because it worked for some other parents, it'll work for you. Be sort of strongly independent-minded and say, let's pray about that. Let's see what'll work for it. We don't have the same kids they do. That's nice to get ideas, but we're going to carve out our own philosophy, not follow someone else's.
I was just going to say thank you for that question because that's exactly what needs to happen. Because so often we just get caught up in what other people are doing, and you just have to carve your own path and make it work. And I do have to say that the gospel is a huge, huge anchor for carving that path because it's helped our kids so much.
Yeah, I think the greatest thing of all that my parents did was help us to seek out our own connection to God. And, they can't write about that as much in their books, but it is the single greatest thing, in my opinion. They really encourage us to forge our own way and figure out our own connection to God, that we couldn't rely on them. But then along with that too, I also love that question because as we all know, it can be detrimental actually to read a bunch of different blogs and see everything on Instagram and go, man, everybody else seems to have it figured out. And it's just that's not true. All of us are striving and we're all going to get different answers. And that's the beauty of it. And again, that's one of the things I love about my parents is they've always said, we're fellow strugglers. Here's some ideas. This will hopefully help you, but you got to figure out for yourself. And they're such great parents because of that fight. And we who would, it's this concept of, you go through all this and you learn all this and then you go, now I'm just going to protect my kids and then give them everything. And no, they've got to discover it. We all have to discover our own ways to be great parents. And again, because we can be spiritual here, I mean, one of the most commonly repeated phrases in all of Scripture is, seek and you shall find. And I absolutely believe that to be true in parenting. If we seek, we will find it. And like my parents have been saying, we seek our business plans, we seek out our plans for our goals in so many ways. But maybe we don't seek enough our personal plans for our own relationship with our spouse or with our kids or for our family. That I know it to be true. If we are seeking that and seeking in our needs and focusing on that, we will get our inspiration and it will be different than whatever blog we're reading. And it might draw us to something we learned from one of those blogs. I don't want to downplay that, but we'll be able to select the right things. So.
Let's try it for at least two or three more questions.
Maybe two.
Right in the middle.
Yes.
So we have one child and we're hoping to have a second here one day. But we're kind of afraid of losing that feeling where that little one is our whole world. How do you have multiple children and treat them each individually like they're everything to you?
Man, Anne Rollenberg said a wonderful thing. Love is the only thing you can just keep giving and it keeps multiplying and you just never run out. You just never run out. And I've had so many parents say that, and you parents that are sitting here, you could all answer this. It just never ends. It's just so exciting. The next child has a whole different set of things that you have to work with, but get to work with. And it really is, it's such a joy to see, well, I wonder what's in this package, It really is so good. Go for it. You're going to love it.
It's not going to be hard on you. You're going to be amazed that you don't divide your love between two. You suddenly have more than twice as much love. It's a miracle. The one it's going to be hard on is the first kid.
Well, I remember having that same thought. We had just had our second, and I thought, I don't know if I could love this baby as much as I love our first baby. But then she was born, and I just melted. And it was just, there's more love filling that heart than I thought there was possible, I was capable of.
Two more over here. Sister.
This is kind of in addition to his question. I have 3, and I have learned my capacity to love them is all equal, but I don't feel like I'm able to give them equal amounts of my time. So having that, because I think that mom guilt or dad guilt, like it sets in strong at the end of the day when you think, I know the reason that you're being terrible is because I did not give you an ounce of attention today because it is just someone else was sick or somebody else was whining or there were just things and people and errands and like how do you do that?
Okay, remember you heard this here. You're at the hardest stage. Honestly, I believe 3 is the hardest. I believe after 4 it actually starts getting better, and part of the reason is middle management. By the time you have your 4th one, the oldest one is old enough to start being part of the solution. And quite honestly, our hardest time, seriously, was when we had 3. It got better after that.
And I also have to say that the advantage is that you can't spend all the time with them. They have to figure out things for themselves. You cannot be a helicopter parent with a bunch of kids. You just have to let them figure it out, and it's so good for them. So take yourself off the guilt trip. You're doing well.
Yeah, the mom guilt is a real thing, and I think to your 2 under 2 comment to kind of piggyback on that, I think it's important to Noah will let me just go out by myself for a little bit and just kind of get some perspective and think of how can I do this better, or go on girls trips every year. We just go on, just explore ideas with other moms and just stuff like that, where it's kind of like he gets to go on business trips. That gets to, but sometimes has to, but I think it's important to have a mom's business trip to talk about how you can kind of breathe and divide that attention.
You dads want to be a hero, send your wife away for a whole day.
A week. Oh, Noah's saying week. Yes, that's a great idea. I used to have a day away when he had a little more flexible time when we were writing books. And every Wednesday he came home and let me go. And I sometimes just sat in the van the whole time and just thought, how am I going to survive? I wrote. And then when I went home, he was so much more handsome than he was when I left. So were the kids were so cute. I didn't realize it, So send those women off, you guys. It's great.
Last one, who's got the cootie top questions?
No pressure.
The old one will do that.
Yes.
In the back.
I've got 2 questions if I'm allowed. So first, how did you, I've noticed you built very strong faith in your son. You're already quoting scriptures. How did you build that strong faith in him? So that's number 1. Second one, if we still have time. So for Sunday executive meeting, how did you have time to do it?
Let me just start with the last one first. We did tell them what we were doing. We told the kids what we were doing. We put the older kids in charge of the young. It's really tough when you have 2 under 2 to do that. Or late night ones. Yeah. Late nights after they've gone to bed, or sometimes we just lock ourselves in a room and say, sorry, if the house is on fire, come and get us. But other than that, no knocking on the door. We have to talk. And they really appreciated that. And the first question...
They tied us all to something and then they would
Last word on that. I got a brief closing statement, but your other question, I'm going to end on. Okay, your first part of our question was, what about the spiritual part, and how do you instill that deeply into your children? I want to end on that.
One thing that when I married into this family, I thought was the cheesiest thing ever, which I have grown to love and think it's the most valuable thing, is every Sunday, they designated a Sunday of each month, and they would share their testimonies at home. And it was typically Fast Sunday, and it just gave each of them an opportunity to share their testimonies if they didn't get the opportunity at church or something. But it kind of, I feel like it helped me love everybody more too, because I could see their love for the gospel, and I feel like it was a good environment for them to open up about things like that. And then maybe he's going to talk more about these, and maybe I should let them talk about it because they did it. But the other thing I feel like is they had this they all have very strong personalities, and I have seen some really exciting moments. But what I love about it is they are all so quick to apologize, and I think it's because they have this repenting bench. Anytime there was a fight in the family, they had this old English pew that they would go and they would sit on it, and they would have to tell what they did wrong. You'd say, well, she did this, she did whatever. But I don't care what she did, I want to know what you did, because it takes two to fight. And they really learned to take that responsibility and to look them in the eye and apologize. And I think that was so valuable, because we've done that with our kids, and it really, I just always say now is just go to the bench, go to the bench, and they go right away, and they're like, okay, and I love that. And it kind of, then you can always connect that to the atonement and to forgiveness and saying sorry.
Now, a final word. Now, Linda's got the last word, but you go, and then I'm going to do mine, and then Linda's going to.
No, I just echo what's already said. I think having an opportunity for parents and kids to be able to share testimony with each other, share deep feelings about God and about life. It's probably the most sacred experiences I had growing up was in our living room. Just, we weren't forced to share. We just had the opportunity to, and I think because we started doing that from young, we were open to sharing our feelings with each other, and some of us are more extroverted, some of us are more introverted, but in that setting we were able to express, and that is definitely a place that our testimonies all grew.
Okay, so I'm going to give Linda the last word, but I want to make you two challenges, just two. One relates to the question that was just asked, but it's the second one. The first challenge I want to give you, this is going to sound intimidating, but I want you to really consider it. Create a written strategy for your family as a couple. Do it together. It won't mirror mine or Noah's or Linda's or Christy's, but do your own. And let it take some time. Work on it a little when you have time, and put it aside and keep it in a file on your computer and add to it. And this is your strategy for your children. And here's the promise I'm going to make you. You will be inspired to anticipate their needs and their gifts, because only you will get that inspiration. One of the fascinating things to me about the gospel is we believe in a priesthood line. We believe in a chain of command, so to speak. We believe we've got a bishop and a stake president and a regional rep and so on. But there's no chain when it comes to inspiration for your own children. There's no links in that chain. It's you and God. And I really believe that when a parent, an earthly parent, prays to a heavenly Father, that's the most natural prayer that could ever be imagined. What you're really saying is, help me with your child. I recognize that you're the father. I'm the babysitter. I'm the steward. I'm the temporary father. Help me to know this person, this child, who is equal to me, who may be an older spirit than I am. Help me to know. And if you'll try to write that, rather than just think about it, and it'll become one of the most sacred documents in your family, maybe the most important document in your life. And one more thing, it'll make your marriage better. Because when a couple unites in working on a strategy, that will draw you closer to each other than any other thing could do. And that ties into the second challenge I want to make to you, which is make the primary focus of your family strategy a spiritual focus. Because in doing that, you acknowledge that you can't handle it. I don't think you want a can-do attitude in your parenting. You don't want to, I can do it. I can raise this kid. I have the power. I don't think you do, because you're lying to yourself. I think you want a can't-do attitude. I think you want an attitude, I can't do it. The world's too big. It's too tough out there. There's too many cultures. But if I am tied into the Spirit, then I can do it. So my main traditions, I'm going to have Christmas traditions. It's going to be part of your family strategy. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. We're going to vacation at this lake or whatever it is. But the most important part of that strategy will be, we're going to have prayer. We're going to have couple prayer. We're going to have family prayer. We're going to have prayer of our kids over 8. We're going to pray a lot. And we're going to read the scriptures together. And we're going to have family meetings once a week. We got a lot of traditions, but the spiritual ones are the ones that matter most. So those two challenges, write a strategy and make spiritual things the heart of it. And I'm going to make you a promise. You will not fail as parents. And you will not fail as marriage partners. And I give you that promise, and I feel, even though I know it's not a religious meeting, I want to make you that promise in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
And our time's up, but I just want to say thank you for what you're doing to raise beautiful children, to bring these beautiful kids into the world, to even have it, for those of you who don't have them yet, you will have such a marvelous experience. There's nothing like it in the world. You are raising leaders, as Richard mentioned earlier. You are bright and wise and deeply spiritual. We really do love you for what you're doing, because you are creating joy every day in your life, and you will for years to come. You've got this to look forward to. So thank you so much for coming tonight. We love you. We love the Savior. Talk to your kids about how much you love the Savior. Don't just assume they know it. Talk about it all the time, as a dad, as a mom. And it's a huge tool that you'll never forget, and they'll never forget. And so thank you. Richard's really closed for us, but thank you so much again for coming. We've loved every minute with you, and we'll stay around for a little bit afterwards if you have.
Give yourselves a round.